And welcome to another episode of the Turn Up For What podcast, talking your Houston Texans straight from the Great British Isles. We're back and it's another defeat, the second time in the DeMeco Ryans era of two successive defeats since his first two games. And the Texans are now sitting at 600 and barely holding in there. And if it wasn't for the AFC South and its dysfunction, then I'm not quite sure where we'll be. But we'll try and work this one out after the Texans dropped 26-23 to the Detroit Lions on Sunday Night Football, the second primetime game in a row. We'll try and work through it. But Gareth, how you doing?
All good. And yourself?
Not too bad, mate. And Paul, how you doing?
Yeah, not bad, thanks, mate. A bit tired after a bit of a hectic week we were, but yeah, all good.
Well, hopefully this will lighten up and in terms of content. We'll try and be brief, I suppose, this week because it's kind of it feels like a bit of a repetition, I suppose. But Paul, to kick us off, how do you sort of process, I suppose, mostly the second half of Sunday?
Yeah, I'm busy being. Obviously, it was 1:30 a.m. kickoff. Watch the highlights and rewatch the game in parts as we go in. The second half started flat and stayed flat, didn't it, with the interception pretty much straight out of the gate, and then it didn't really get much better, did it? I think we kind of, after a really good first half, we felt like we froze a little bit or went into our shell and retreated away from some things, which was disappointing to see.
Yeah, and I suppose Gareth, if I told you that we would have 5 turnovers, you think you'd be hard pressed to lose a game, particularly at home.
100%. See, to be honest, I actually thought the second half, if CJ had connected with a few of those passes compared to what we've been talking about the past few weeks, he had plenty of time in the pocket, a lot. And I think it was just misplacement of the ball. I think we would have been a lot better with yards. Fair play what Paul said about obviously the start, with the turnovers at the start. But apart from that, I actually thought a few better placement of passes. I thought we would have done a lot better. There was points there that we missed. I'm not just talking about the field goal at the end, but there was points I think we missed.
Well, our drive chart for the second, if anybody wants to relive it, I'll read this through for you. So you're in the lead. Interception, first play at the gate, 4 seconds off the clock, not great. You then hit back with another interception, so you think, well, fair enough, back to even. Then we've got 3 plays, 54 seconds, punt. They then go and score a touchdown as a result of that, but the second time in the game that the tight end just runs free and the communication between the linebacker and safety, awareness isn't there, which led to both directly led to a score and indirectly led to their other touchdown of the day. Or 2 of 3 rather. Then the next is 6 plays, 4 minutes, punt. 3 plays, 35 seconds off the clock, 1 yard to show for it, punt. 4 plays, 4 yards, 3:17 off the clock, punt. Before you miss that field goal. So, and I think if I counted back on obviously there was the pass interference on the final play that could have been called, but you get some, you don't get some. But yeah, I think just to pick up on that point, Gareth, in terms of the missed passes, I count there was the second drive where we're backed up after the first interception. The tight end drops it. You've then got Schultz wide open on the final drive, and he misses him. You've then got a terrible sack that's taken when there was multiple. I think I counted 5 plays where people were wide open. But Paul, I suppose you probably can't get away, and it's hard to be critical on CJ, but I think that since the Green Bay game it's been a consistency of Stroud missing passes or missing throws that he would have normally made. I think we say normally, from last season's sample size, we think he normally made post the first 2 games when he continued to just get better and better. And I think that the protection was better, like we said. I think absolutely it was, but the build up of that pressure and physical blows, I think, weighed on him a little bit, and you've just seen the high standards that he set himself wobble. And Paul, I just don't think there's any way you can get away from when, if you look at the still image, Tank Dell is 6-7 yards behind their defence, and he points, floats it, And the biggest strength of their team's the two safeties. And he at that point, it would have gone 30 to 13, I think. And you would have been out at, yeah, it would be 13 to 13 up, 30 to 13 at that point. You would have had a right chance at that point, but you end up after you had two drives that stalled in the red zone in the first half. You've lost the best part of 14, 17 points there, and I thought that was the moment that it turned. That was right into the sort of third quarter there, and I think that was the bit that seemed to just turn it, and it kind of felt like it was just a matter of time after that point.
Yeah, I mean, just going back a step to the ones on our goal line that we had that were dropped. I think there was it Woods and then Schultz, or the other way round, had both dropped ones on that drive after Lasseter's interception on the goal line, hadn't it? And he really fired them in there. And then that one in particular, watched it 3 or 4 times about half an hour ago, just on repeat. Like, I can't, usually you'd want him, on the way he's thrown it in the past, that type of things, he's tried to actually fire it in there, hasn't he, rather than float these things. And then lead Dell maybe a bit more to the outside, but just floating it in there seemed a bit of a strange decision, really. Especially after some the other week where he'd fired them in there quite low, and Dell had taken some low ones to the ground and secured the ball really well to kind of float it up to a guy that's not that big anyway, and make any catch contestable seems a bit of a strange one. But
yeah, I mean, it's a safer option, I suppose, if he could take it low, and especially if he's back to the defence. And he did it in the first half as well. He sort of floated one into tank, and the DB just comes flying over him and breaks it up. And it was I think, yeah, was it a bad performance from CJ? It was probably his worst in terms of context, because you think if you want him to go win you a game at that moment on that drive, after starting the half off terribly with the first play at the gate is an interception, and then we've run some trick plays, which actually on that trick play to try and get us going, Mixon actually missed the block, and I thought Mixon actually, for all he's good, I thought Mixon had a terrible game. He just was, right at the start of the game, there was plays that were blocked and he was just running into blockers or not picking the right hole. Fairbairn misses a kick, CG misses some easy passes. Those have been your 3 stalwarts, and the complete reliance. Those guys fall away, and for what looked like a good defensive performance we'll come on to wasn't enough. And I suppose, what did you make, Gareth, of the call to hold Nico out of that game on Sunday? Because it's hard to not think that him playing might have just been the difference between an extra 4 points at some point on that offensive output.
Do you not think that tells you what D'Amico was thinking when they held him out? Like, I think they thought going into the game it was down as a loss. Like, they weren't, when they held Collins out, I don't think they were thinking of winning. I didn't think so anyway. I think they thought of Dallas as being the game. They keep him out for Dallas and bring him in for it, and that's the game to go for the W instead of against Detroit. The way they've been playing, like we were talking last week, I didn't think they were going to be as close as it was, to be honest with you. So I think that's what D'Amico was thinking, and that's why he kept Collins out, just for that, to save him for the Dallas game and go for the W there.
I hope not, because I think you didn't have that luxury, and we're certainly right up against the wire of being a seeded team and a non-seed, going on the road for the playoffs. And I think they're 2 very different outcomes, and it's likely that it'll be a Saturday game if that when we get to that stage. So home advantage is ideal. You're not going to catch the Chiefs, that's for sure. What's the difference, Paul, between a team like them who are a level above us? Let's be honest. I think. I mean, and don't get me wrong. At times, I thought they looked pretty mortal, particularly in the first half. Despite they've kind of buzzsawed through everybody pretty much to this point in this season. But the 2 bits that stood out for me was we just did not break any fucking tackles the whole game. We just did not. Their tackling and their organisation and their coaching was just so on point. And it didn't look like they lost belief. If I think at times in the season we look like we're out on our luck a little bit, and there's a sort of inbuilt mentality in there that they just kept grinding away. And it was the irony on the broadcast that Dan Campbell, love him, loathe him, is talking about one play at a time, and they literally throw the most ridiculous interception and give them a way back into the game. But there was a mentality there. He said, you're not going to get in every play, but you just got to keep going and keep chipping away. And at no point did we put them to bed. And I don't think we've put any team to bed, and I include New England in that, because there was times at the game I thought, we could make this is getting too close. So is it just a mentality, is a coaching thing? What do you think, Paul? Because it just seems like they were a tier above us in terms of game scheming, management, approach, mentality. It feels like that's something we're not in that place yet.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it feels more of a management thing. They obviously went in at half time after, I think near enough every drive in the first half. Played some really good football, got ourselves into good positions, and their defence went in at half time, made some adjustments and come out. Whether it was a reset of attitude, a reset of structure, they come out and looked like a completely different defence, didn't they? And that one straight off the bat. When you look at it from the camera angle behind, I think it's Cade Stover is wide open for an easy 7 or 8 yards, and we tried to throw it right out onto the touchline. But yeah, I think it's probably management and in-game situation from their coordinators to adjust to what's happening. Whereas I think we're pretty rigid in how we want to approach things and don't make them changes.
Oh yeah, I think I know the one you mean. Actually, I think it was Schultz actually, just on the right of the formation, and he runs a curl, and then he's there, and it's just an easy, just hit him in the numbers and take this 5-6 yards, and then live another day. But yeah, he goes for the kind of extravagant one. I suppose it's difficult because when you were saying that, my mind went back to the point where they dropped 7 on a passing play in the red zone, and it's 4 on 5, and at that point you think, well, go and scramble for 5 or 6 yards, and then he tries to throw it, and I think he actually throws it to Mixon, who's out on the sidelines, almost throws it back to him. It bounces, and it just there was times we that drive at the end of the first half was probably one of our best drives, if not the best drive of the season, and it really was. And that's the frustrating bit, I think, because when it clicks, this team can go somewhere. But Gareth, where do you think the fault lies in with this team? Because I think, and I've heard people talk about this, and it's so true, right? It's a stop-start game, and it's long, but the half time's the shortest bit. So there's not much you can change in that. But it's, for me, that can't be coaching, that you go from having the best drive of the season to the worst start of a drive of the season, either side of the half, because you just scored before the half. You then get the ball back, and even if you get tackle on a 3 at that point, you're sitting pretty. But where do you think the fault lies for this team consistently coming out in the second half and not putting up any points, stalling drives, and basically trying to hold on to first half leads?
I don't think we can blame the coaches for coming out and TJ throwing that pick in the first. I don't think we can blame that on the coaches. I think it put us behind the sticks kind of thing when we done it, because naturally as soon as you do that there, you're thinking, oh damn, what's going to happen here, because of what's been happening the last number of weeks when it comes to second half. But I think when you watch our second half performance, do you not think like we're running the same kind of plays even from the first half? There's no variance to it. Like, we're still trying to throw the screen pass, we're still getting motion coming side to side, which was working, yes, first half. But would you not pick up would the coaches not obviously pick up that, like, throughout the season teams will be coming out in the second half and just picking up on everything we're doing? Like, to me it's just simplistic, me being simplistic here, but I think we're just going with because it worked in the first half, let's just do it the second half. Whereas defenses in the NFL are just twitching onto that. When they're doing this the first half, oh, there you go, screen. Oh, there you go, they're going motion, they're going to throw it to the wide man in the motion. You know what I mean? It seems as if they're doing the same kind of thing.
I'm laughing because I was remembering that. I'm remembering that screen in the second half where they ended up being about. I mean, they read it before it. I think before the ball was even snapped, and it was. There was about 5 or 6 people in the backfield, and it just looked horrendous, particularly on the still. And if you see that many players in the backfield, I think the trouble with Slowick for me right now is, and I look, ultimately, there was a quote from D'Amico today, or yesterday, sorry, in his media availability, and he said, all the offensive coaches play a part, and even I have some input, something to that effect. And that kind of bugged me a little bit, I'll be honest, because I think, when he says even I have some input, ultimately he is in charge of the product that goes out on the field, and if there is issues, which there clearly are, he's got to have more than just some form of input. It's got to be management of those staff, clear direction on what needs fixed. And that may be him just putting his attempt to put a kind of public shine on it of something that's very hard to shine, I suppose, in terms of second half offensive output, because it's just simply not been good enough. But when Slowick in the first half, he used their strengths, and I always think of the Cleveland game in the playoffs last year. It was probably his best game plan I've seen from an offensive coordinator for us for a long, long time, and he used their strengths against them. And he was kind of doing that in the first half against Detroit as well, but he was rolling, and then you kind of you're kind of rolling the opposite way of the protection, or the flow of the line, if you like, and then sort of coming to the taking on whoever the backside defender was. But there was, when you think about and it worked, and they did it 2 plays back to back. Tankdale actually caught one on either side, motioned across, and you thought, well, yeah, okay, you've shown something there. But the amount of times that you saw Anzalone, the linebacker, get beat by a tight end, as not find them regularly or go after that matchup, because he's a good downhill player, but his lateral and movement isn't of the same caliber as some of our tight ends. And look, it's I don't think we ever wanted Cade Stover playing this many snaps, and it wasn't. I don't think it was necessarily his best game. Again, he's had a few of those in big games against NFC teams, particularly the Vikings as well. But the thing with Slowick is, at times it looks good, and he consistently has a script that gets you success early. I don't know what stops him having a second script or something to that effect, that or dilute the script at the start and keeps him back, or whatever it is. And look, there was drops, there was missed throws, and look, that play call at that time to get Tank that wide open against an NFL defense should be nothing but a touchdown, even if it was the Tyrod Taylor at quarterback. That should have been an easy one, and that could have been us, sitting pretty at that point. It still would have been a tough game to see out. But so it's difficult to criticise the guy too much because there's been so many flaws. But I suppose, Paul, the big benefit, although we couldn't run it, and I think mixing plays a big part in that, so we lost our balance in terms of running the ball because we got held to sub 100 yards, which is always an indicator of a potential loss. But the pass protection, I think, was good. Although Scruggs got dinged for a couple of penalties, the pass protection overall, they picked up stunts and twists, which has been an issue. They did that multiple times, and they actually stopped doing it towards the end, Detroit. But I think the offensive line changes actually did strengthen us, and I did hear D'Amico say this, that actually the communication of Patterson was the reason why they put him in at centre, because he can help set things up, and obviously that worked to a degree, and it worked at the start of last season. So we may have found some proficiency in the passing game, providing CJ can get back to his heights and maybe his confidence will build. But I think the changes, albeit we're back in the run game, I think a bad run game can get covered up by an explosive pass game. So I think they found a step forward there to try and take a positive on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, we were sharing some messages, weren't we, on Sunday before the game, and it was really a push that Patterson had started centre, and I think we both come to the same thing, that he's obviously got a better brain for it than what we had previously. But I think as well, I think that's what we kind of ran with at the end of last season when it looked a lot better. And we did cover at the end of the last season for a average-ish run game by being explosive through the air, weren't we? And it covered a lot of stuff up. But yeah, it looked better. It was the bits again. Rewatching it in the third quarter, just there's one on the Shaq Mason gets rushed for ends up being a sack on CJ, but not huge amounts in there, was there? It looked a lot better, looked a lot more consistent than it has done for most of the season, which, like you said, big improvement really.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a big positive of the passing game, minus Nico Collins, Gareth, was John Mechie. I suppose for him to come back from cancer and various injuries that he's had, it was always going to take a while, and I suppose it's hard to judge him on what he did, but he came with some big catches at some big times. I think it was 70 odd yards he got, and he led the team, which is not great. But yeah, I think a special moment for a guy that's probably earned that in some way. So I think it will have meant a lot to him and probably his teammates as well.
Oh, couldn't agree more with you there. But I think it's been building with him for a couple of weeks, and we discussed this here. I think he was the guy to step up when Diggs went out, because Mitchie was brought in as kind of the slot receiver kind of thing. So he was until obviously his illness. So I thought some of his route running was great. And I think it showed you that CJ trusts him as well, because I think it was the play in the first half for his first catch that he just hadn't even come out of his route, and CJ had just put it on the money, and he just caught it in the middle, behind the linebackers and in front of the safeties. So it just shows you that CJ is trusting him with giving him them kind of passes that he's going to catch them. So I think he's just going to go from strength to strength, because he needs to. We don't have the third receiver at the minute, so it goes Nico, Hank, and then the third receiver's up for grabs in my eyes, and I think he's the one that could get it.
Yeah, I hope so. I would be good. I think the second round pick, you've invested in the guy, and obviously things are beyond his control and the team's control up to this point, and it was always going to take time. He looked a bit of a shadow of himself last season, but yeah, I mean that route for the touchdown he scored was great. There was a sort of kind of deep over that he ran, and to set up that drive, he got you a third down as you were driving before the previous drive, and I suppose I think it was good to see. It was good to see an offensive output from a guy who's been through a lot personally. I suppose it's just a shame that couldn't have perhaps capped a win. There was some strange moments in the game. That many interceptions. When I think of the play of Titus stripping the ball out of CJ's hands, that was the third and final drive. It just, there was just a lot of small things. I think Woods had 2 drops, one in the back of the end zone, one where you were backed up on your own goal line to try and start a drive just after Cade Stover dropped a clear first down. Well, I think it was a pass defended, but I think he should have done a better job with his body boxing him out, and that's something he'll maybe need to learn. But yeah, overall, I think it was another performance where if you don't score a point in the second half, you're not going to win many games, regardless of who you're playing, regardless of the lead, and regardless of and least of all, I suppose, the form team of the league, and that's what it was. But how do you judge this team, Paul? I suppose, because in my head, I was speaking to somebody today, and I conceptual the barometer for me was, is this team better than the one that went out in Baltimore last year in the playoffs, who barely laid a glove on them that day? That's the barometer, right? Because if we're not better than that, we're not going to get any further than that, in theory. And that for me, that's the bit that or the sort of the level or the comparison point that I keep going back to now. We've not got there at all. Whether the team was better talent wise, but the performances haven't matched the talent in any game really this season. So I suppose you could argue in some ways this team is worse than that team that went out in Baltimore, because Nico was out there. The offensive line's probably playing worse. The defense is so in terms of talent. I don't think there's not huge additions apart from Donnell Hunter versus last year that make any noticeable difference. So how do you kind of process the loss and where this team are versus its aspirations to this point? What's your take on it?
Yeah, the season offered so much, didn't it, right at the beginning? Pretty excited, and it's kind of look exhausted. It's been a long run to the bye as well, which is always hard, I guess, for players when they've got to do it 11, 12 consecutive weeks. It's a long time. But it is frustrating because it did offer so much, and it just doesn't seem to be going anywhere really. That being said, we're two dying second field goals away from being potentially 8-2, which is also a bit mad, really, when you think about the level of performance we've put in. Okay, we wouldn't deserve to be 8-2, I wouldn't have thought, but potentially we could be if it wasn't for them 2 last second field goals. So yeah, a difficult one to judge. I think we probably are better than that team out in Baltimore last year, but I wouldn't say it's enough for us to really make a big step, and that's basically just on talent on the roster, really.
Yeah, because I kind of think of it, if you have to go back to Baltimore or you have to go to Kansas City, which we will do in this season, so we'll get another test of that and then we'll host Baltimore, but within 2 games within really quick succession, worse than what we did on Thursday night, or less time to prepare than we had on the Thursday night football a week ago, and or 10 days ago now, and that wasn't great. So you think, they haven't shown us enough to make you think that there is a step to be had. But I suppose, Gareth, when you think about the players, I've talked about having player-only meetings, because I think they realise that at a crossroads. I think they understand there's been a level of underachievement based on the talent, and perhaps that is an admission of they're letting the coaching staff down, or perhaps that's something that they need to try and they're trying to instill a mentality between themselves, that things should and could be better. What do you make of the sort of kind of the rumblings of, obviously, Jonathan Alexander had an article in the Houston Chronicle last week, and then there was more sort of references to having more player-only meetings this week after the loss. What do you kind of make of that? Is that much to be read in, or is that just committed pros trying to improve a situation that should be much better than it is, I suppose?
I don't think it's a sign of not having confidence in the coaching team, to be honest with you. I think it's more a sign of, right, 2 losses in a row here, we need to buck our ideas up, kind of thing. Personally, I think for to have the meeting, I don't think it's to iron out too many things. I think the defense will be playing brilliant. Honestly, compared to last year, Detroit, we stopped their run more or less every time until we get tired. Really, the second half. Pass rush was great. We've been talking about the back end. I don't think we've enough pace, and we say it again. For the first touchdown, Eric Murray. Why was he even on the field?
Well, so on that one though, I did watch the All-22 back today, and that was my thought at the start. But actually, it's Toa that gets caught out, and I think he's just basically the covering safety that picks him up. So it was actually his play recognition, I think, that to be fair to Eric. But yeah, anyway, sorry. Anyway.
Well, there you go. Do you know what I mean? I'm just saying. Do you know what I mean? There's one thing. Toa is a rookie. Do you know what I mean? More or less.
Yeah.
So we're that's the kind of standard we're counting on for our defense, and we're still playing well. But I don't think, going back to what you're saying, I don't think the meeting was anything major. I think it's just got in against Dallas, right? 2 losses in a row. We have the division in our hands here. Let's just back to training. Let's work on these things. We know what we need to do, and just let's go the Cowboys and win. I think basically that's what it is. I don't think it's anything to do with confidence, because they look, apart from CJ, obviously, like we said, I think the defense is playing with confidence, and I think you'll find the offense will play with a lot more confidence if Nico Collins back on Monday, because I think it'll open up a lot more space for everybody else. Because when you have that wide receiver 1, you know what I mean, it takes up a lot of attention of a defense, you know what I mean? So it'll leave more space for John Mechie, leave more space for Tank Dell, leave more space for Mixon to run into or catch passes out the backfield. So I don't think it's anything we have to worry about. I just think, like you said, it's just professionals just saying, right, this is what we need to do. Let's put the game plan down and let's go against Dallas.
Yeah.
If it was wider than the leadership group, then there'd be a concern, wouldn't it? But read the article you mentioned earlier, and the people that were involved in the meeting are all team captains or seen as leaders on the team. So if it was spread a little bit wider than that and others coming in, then you'd maybe have questions. But I guess these type of meetings happen in all 32 teams in the league, no matter how well or bad teams are playing. But you might just not hear about them. But I guess they happen everywhere. But obviously we're going through a bit of a rough patch, and it gets publicised, doesn't it? Because this stuff happens. So. Yeah,
no, I think so. I think I take it as a good sign in many ways. I suppose it's the bit that I keep coming back to is we've just not played well all season. We really haven't. For a consistent, even 3 quarters. Really, I don't think we have done. We've had drives in second halves that have kind of sealed games here and there. But I don't think there's been a game where we've gone out and we thought, that was the best game we could have played. Everything went our way. So I hope all this adversity that we've got through now in racking up these 4 losses, and albeit 3 of them were NFC, so that doesn't necessarily impact your AFC standing directly. I hope the adversity that these guys are working through now is a bit that, if you get through the bad times now, does that toughen you up? And as Gary Kubiak always used to say, battle tested, does that get you to that point where your mentality is improved because you've had to go through this now, and when it comes to the crunch, this team will be better for it. I hope so. And I suppose that there's got to be some level of improvement because we've kind of stalled around, we've had flashes of drives here and there, but the level of consistency over, even 2.5, 3 quarters has not been there all season. So that's got to come at some point because, as I said before, even bad teams have great games. Even teams that you think are going to be the number 1 overall pick somehow, piece together a performance through coaching, game plan, circumstance, health, whatever it might be. And I suppose we do have that in health, and we'll come back to that before Dallas. But I just think we need to round off and just give a bit of a nod to this defence. Paul, who was your standout performer? Because I think even though statistically it wasn't great in the pass rush, I thought he did a good job of impacting Jared Goff's rhythm, and that was a big part of the interceptions. I thought the coverage on the back end was good, the organisation was good, apart from the management of the tight ends between the linebackers and safeties. I thought it was probably one of the better performances. Now, you've still conceded 26 points, and I think that's a bit you can't really get away from, but arguably against one of the best teams in the league. And actually, is this offense good? Should this offense be good enough to beat teams if you only concede 26? Yeah, I would argue it should be most of the time, maybe not every game. But I suppose, it is the leading unit. You've got Mario Edwards coming back this week again, which will only strengthen because towards the end, when they started running the ball, I'm having to look at my phone and going, who the hell is number 90, whatever it was, and it was Tomi Togirai, who'd been promoted from the practice squad, and I think, well, why the hell did we give Khalil Davis away when he could have been in that spot when he's getting turned in the run game? And I can read the back of his jersey as either Montgomery or Jahmyr Gibbs are running up the other way. At key times we were looked light, and I don't know if there's an injury towards the end of the game because I'm sitting on my phone watching, looking at the drive chart, and I've got the all-22 playing this afternoon, and I'm trying to look at it. I thought we just looked a little bit short towards the end, and I don't know if that's depth or that was injury or that was tactical. I was trying to give guys a rest, but when you needed to stop them, we couldn't. Kurt Hinish is in there getting crumpled in the run game again, so Khalil Davis is a loss, I think, and it showed on that final drive. Mario Edwards is a must to come back, so a bit of a strange one there, I think, in terms of talent management. Again, at the running back position as well, if you look at them on the other side of the ball, a bit of a tangent here, but they've got 2 running backs that they keep going after. We gave away our other sort of pro-ready running back. We've not signed another one, so small margins, but their roster's just a bit more depth and a bit more quality than ours, and it's just fine margins like that can maybe lose you games, but not to detract from the defence. Paul, who was your kind of standout performer?
I mean, the defence did all that without Will Anderson as well, which is knowing he's the star on defence, isn't he? Really, so it's great. I think the two rookie defensive backs are having really good, solid seasons. Lassiter's a lot better. Seven
interceptions between the two now, I think, or something like that. Yeah, it's phenomenal.
I saw a picture that Caleb Bullock had shared of all of his interception balls lined up and with the tape around them and labelled who he'd intercepted and what game and what quarter. I thought, the sack that Danico Autry got was good. It's good to see him getting pressure on as well. And Daniil Hunter, when you see this, it's nothing flashy, but when you see the stats, there's a hell of a lot of quarterback pressures he's getting in there without getting the sack for it as well. But I mean, it'd be, despite giving up some big-ish plays, it'll be one of the defensive backs for me. I think Stingley's having another good season, and people don't want to seem to target him too much, it feels like. So probably be one of the boys back there for me.
Yeah, we managed to get 5 QB hits and no sacks, I think, and that was ultimately, and probably enough in the game, I think, to throw them off, and then but we only racked up 3 TFLs because I think that's meant to be the best line in football, but there was a number of plays where Penny Sewell got got by Donnell and Danico Autry. So, I think Autry's running into a bit of form, I think. I'm a little bit concerned, Gareth, in terms of that's the third ankle injury that Will Anderson's had now in 2 years, and I know it was unlucky and it was happened, it was circumstance, but he is a mess. Would you hold him out the Dallas game in the same way that they held out Nico in this game, if it meant, if the longer term picture is the one that could send? Do you think, is that worth the risk this week?
I personally would hold him out, to be honest with you. If Nico's back, I would hold him out because Dallas are no good shakes at the minute. That team is a shambles in my eyes, a shambles. Do I think our pass rush would be good enough to go against Cooper Rush, or if they bring in Trey Lance against the O-line? 100% without Will Anderson. If he's there, he'd make a hell of a difference, but I don't think I would rush him back because of the history with the ankle, to be honest with you. And just going back to what you were saying about the defense, I think you need a shout out for Jalen Petrie. I think he was unbelievable against the run on Sunday. Like, they're playing him in that kind of nickel corners, rather than playing him safety, and I think he was unbelievable. Like, how many tackles did he have, or how many times did he just have that dive in front of the man, the running back? They had to jump over him to get towards him. So I think he could be the big difference come now Monday night, isn't it, against Dallas?
Yeah. So it was 6 tackles, 2 solo, 1 pass defended, and 1 QB hit on the day for Jalen. And the pass defended led to an interception. So I think, I think he's found a role. I think, and I think when you get guys in position that gets the best out of them, I think that's it. We just need 1 or 2 more complementary pieces on the back there to go with them. I think interesting that Jeff Okuda was out, because I think because ultimately Jimmy Ward earholed Kamari Lasser, who went out after that, and that kind of that weakened us. I think again we're light at those 2 spots. We had D'Angelo Ross playing loads of snaps. We then released him and brought him back on the practice squad. So we're absolute paper thin at outside corner, which is a bit worrying. And we seem to have kind of managed to do that in some certain positions where we think we can get by, which I think is a bit roster mismanagement for me. But yeah, we need Lasseter back, because I think him and Sting on the outside has been probably the biggest, not surprise, but biggest strength that I was maybe a question going into this, in similar ways that sometimes the defensive tackle has been, and the front 4 has been good. I think it looked great for long periods, that the defense out there, but we shall see. I suppose now dropping to 6-4, Paul, I'm of the opinion now that I don't think. Now, obviously, we're in this privileged position where the AFC South is a fucking mess, right? So, we're likely going to win the division and go to the playoffs, unless you lose 6 of your last games. Maybe, even then, you might, I don't think it only. I've seen Anthony Richards coming back for Indianapolis this week. We're probably going to win the division, and we're in a bit of a luxury position, and I think that may have played into thinking of the Nico Collins omission from Sunday, and the fact it was an NFC game. But we need to start building momentum if we're going to seriously go and try and take on teams as we get into the latter stages of this. For me, Paul, we've got to win the next 3.
Yeah, just looking at the schedule here, they are all winnable games when you look at the state of the teams that are going to be playing. I've said about the state of the Cowboys, then I'm letting on a table here, and I was making sure I was touching it, because it's the type of thing I'd come out with. And Dallas would turn up and play really, really well, but they're a team that shipped how many points to Detroit the other week? They got absolutely blown out, didn't they, at home by Detroit? So, you'd like to think we go there, but yeah, we've got to win the next 3. The next 3 for sure. And then that takes us into the Dolphins, and I think that's a winnable game, really, or we should be looking at it as a winnable game. It's obviously five weeks away now, isn't it? But I think we've got to be aiming to win them 4, and then you're going into probably the 2 of the best teams in that entire league, aren't you, with the Chiefs and then the Ravens? So.
and you never have thought that Dallas would have been a sort of get right game or a confidence boosting game, because we need that. When I think, in some way that the Green Bay one, the New England one was, I think we've not had many layups on the schedule, beyond the AFC South. So it's the toughest schedule, and I always thought 10 or 11 wins will be where you want to get to. As we sit here now, Gareth, do you think do you think 3 wins out the next 3, and that is Dallas on the road, which is, as you said, and I would the bet if we do, and again, as I said, touchwood, I'd love to see fucking Jerry Jones's face, because this will sting more than all of them put together. I think not the light shining through the glass window at the back of the end zone so people can't see it. Everything that's gone wrong for them has gone wrong this season, and kind of similar way that the Jets had at that point, so it kind of feels like that. Then you've also got Trevor Lawrence is going to be back. I've got a bye week, and then he'll come back probably for our game the week after, and then you've got a trip to Tennessee. And then you've got Tennessee at home. So before you go to Jacksonville, Lawrence returns rather. So there's no gimmies in this league. But I suppose if you look at those 3 games as we sit now, I suppose there's and when you compound all the losses that we've had, particularly a couple that we shouldn't have, there's got to be a real needed desire, I think, to win 3 in a row. Do you subscribe, or what's your thought?
No, I totally agree. But I think, like we were talking earlier, I think that's the reason they kept Collins out of the Detroit game, because he has these earmarked as the kind of defining games of our season. Like, we go to 9-4, isn't it? 9-4. If we win the next 3, like, we beat Tennessee, we beat Indianapolis, like, the division's won with them 2 wins, and then like you're saying, there's a couple of games away from maybe getting home field advantage, in the playoffs. They are, so win them 3, and there's a lot to play for then. So I think that's why they keep maybe Will Anderson out of this game to have him back after the bye. So like, it's not really. It's 3 games that we will have down to win, but at the start of the season, I don't think we would have had the 3 games down to win, if you know what I mean. I think it would have been 2 divisional games, yes, to win, but not all 3. But now, looking at the season stands now, it's definitely 3 games we have to win.
Yeah, because I think we're going to have to get to 12 wins if we want to get a home playoff. Yeah, I might be wrong, but I think when you look at Kansas City, they're going to be away in the bye, I think, because they just seem to, even with games they don't deserve to win, like at the weekend, and block that field goal, for all accounts they were not great, but yeah, there they are, blocking a field goal when I think it was a 34-yarder or something. So just a failing on special teams there. Buffalo sitting 8-2, they've not lost since we beat them. Pittsburgh have been a real surprise. I think they continue, and have added pieces and look good. They're sitting 7-2, and then Baltimore 7-3. Technically we're sitting above them because we're above them in the division, but because of being the top of our division, and Pittsburgh are leading there. So and then you've got kind of the Chargers, who would be a tricky out because you've got an elite talent quarterback there. So you want the home game, absolutely. But I think it might take us 11, maybe 12 wins to do that. So yeah, if that is the aim, and it should be the aim, then I think the next 3 is the only way. Hopefully, because it's going to have to be some momentum building, but one game at a time. And Monday night in Dallas will be hopefully the get right game, and I bet something that can breed a little confidence, because we need it, particularly on the offensive side of the ball. So yeah, any final thoughts before we head out here, chap? I think it's a weird spot to be in, because it feels one of underachievement, but yet we are where we need to be, I suppose, Paul.
Yeah, we are, and I was again. Got the schedule open, so if we've got to win 5 games to get to 11, that means you've got to beat the Dolphins, you've got to beat the Titans twice, the Jags and the Cowboys, and they're all games that are very winnable, really, aren't they? So I think that's got to be the target, is get to 11 and then see what happens, and hopefully more people come back, more people hit form, everything starts clicking eventually with the offense, and then we go from there and see where you end up at the end of it all, don't you?
Yeah, because I think if I can't get away from the fact that we've not been consistent all season, and it's got to happen at some point. So if it's going to happen down the stretch, because there's some good teams, or there's some very average teams got hot down the stretch. You know, Joe Flacco, Baltimore Ravens, for example, great defense, all right offense, and then gone and won a Super Bowl, I suppose, and it's got to happen at some point. So, hopefully Monday night, because this will be our third primetime game in a row. We've not put a good showing in the first two. Well, an okay one on Sunday, a terrible one on the Thursday, and now we're completing the trifecta of the primetime games. Do you think that losing the two in a row is enough just to get enough out this game? And because I think, what's a good outcome, I suppose, Gareth? Is it just winning and get by, just get back, get off the slide, or do you think, based on where we've been this season, it needs to be a comprehensive performance because we are yet to see one? Or is that too idealistic, I suppose, in this league?
You see, I know we're not playing well, but we're still winning games, not playing well. And I just keep going back to a couple of seasons ago where if anybody had come up to us and said in 2 years' time we're going to be sitting 6-4 with a chance to win, thinking we're going to win the next 4 games, like, you'd have bit people's arms off. Like, you would have, like, there's no getting away from it. And we're saying we're not playing well, but we still won 6 games, and we've still got a chance now of winning possibly the next 5 if we play a wee bit better. Like that's the position we're in. I think it's great. I love the fact that we know if we can play to the potential that the offense and defense have, that we can beat anybody. And that's such a great place to be in compared to what it was a couple of years ago, where everyone was down in the dumps. Like, personally, I go into every game thinking, if we click here, we're going to beat them, we're going to beat. So, to me, I think that's all it takes. Just maybe a few wee tweaks, like we've been talking about, like the O-line, a wee tweak there, and look how much better they done. Maybe Nico Collins back now, taking for the defense going into next week against Dallas, taking all their focus on Nico Collins, will just open everything up again. Like, it could be just something as simplistic as that. They just change the whole season.
Yeah, I keep thinking they're just been too slow to make change. I think Kenyon Green was left out there too long to make a change that was at their disposal the entire time. It could have been in camp, and I just go back to the point. I don't know if this roster's just got not gaping flaws, but subtle flaws in it that we've talked about. That will, regardless of how well the coaching staff play or how well certain individuals play, it might just not be enough. But there is a baseline level of decent football that we've not attained. So get to that, and then we'll see where the chips land at that point, I think, and I'll take it. But I was just explaining it to Paul before we started, Gareth. That was the first game I've slept through probably in 10 years, and I just thought, I'm looking up for this. I don't think I'll do it on Monday, I'll see, but I think the watching Jerry's face if we were to beat them would be something, because we've never won there, and that's the thing. This was going to be a season's first. It was our first ever win at New England. Can it be the first win in Jerry World? And on Sunday we shall see. But thank you everybody for listening. Thank you everybody that sent in comments and questions and saying that we're glad that we're back doing this, enjoying it with the chaps, talking it through. It's been a kind of strange old season at this point. It was a strange game on Sunday. But let's have a functional, commanding performance, and we'll take it from there Sunday. So thank you very much for listening for the Turn Up For What podcast, talking your Houston Texans straight from the Great British Isles, and we'll speak to you again, hopefully after Monday, with a win.